Welcome to the Forever and Ever podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about something that might feel a little uncomfortable at first because it involves entry level of confrontation, and that is us discussing the need to talk about the hard things early within relationships. But when we avoid conversations like this, it is potentially harmful for that relationship. But when we have these hard conversations, they protect the relationship. See, we think that we're protecting it by avoiding it, but we end up starving those relationships. But when what strengthens your marriage is honesty, transparency. And the sooner that you have those conversations, the more trust and unity you're able to build. And especially as we get into what those hard things are and why they matter, it could help us to approach them with love and clarity. So let's also unpack what the hard things are. And I want us to kind of go about this both as in a marriage and if you're just still dating or more on the market for relationships. And it's the same concept of discussing difficult things early on. So these topics may feel sensitive. They even may feel a little loaded or awkward if you bring them up, but it's things like sex and physical intimacy, date nights, emotional connection, kids and parenting styles, money and how it's handled, friendships, especially boundaries with the opposite sex, religion, church involvement, political views, social media, privacy, even sharing each other's passwords, career goals, and how to support one another in them. See, these are heavier subjects. They're not light. And they hit at our values, our security, our identity, our vision for the future. And because they're so personal, we often hesitate to bring those things up. And we think, well, this might cause a fight. Or this is too much too soon. What if they don't understand me? What if we disagree completely on this? And so couples will often avoid these conversations during that dating phase and almost have these unspoken expectations or assumptions that they're on the same page over something that they never have talked about. But listen, not talking about these things won't make tensions go away. It just pushes them underground. And eventually, it will find its way to the surface. The earlier you talk about these topics, the better. And it doesn't matter if you're dating, newly married, or even if you've been together for years. These conversations are better if you have them, and not once but regularly. As life and seasons change, you should also have these open discussions about things that might have changed in your thoughts about them, or etc. So let's talk about honest conversations and how they build safe relationships. We often think that bringing up sensitive topics might make things more tense. But the truth is, honest conversations are what build safety. I think a good tone to go into, or a good mindset, is that it is not your place to control how the other person thinks. Okay? It is not your job. Your goal in the conversation isn't to force the other person to align with your beliefs, but for y'all to have an open discussion about it and find this place of collaboration, or this place of reasonable conditions or reasonable expectations. When you create a pattern of honesty, even about things that are difficult like this, you're telling your spouse, I want to be a safe place for truth, and I want to understand you, and I also want to be understood. You know, as an example, when it comes to sex, many couples avoid talking about it altogether until there's already this built up something. You know, if you're dating and maybe you have in your mind, you're like trying to hold on to the Christian value of waiting till you get married. And all of a sudden it seems like the other person is like going for it, but you're thinking like, well, I guess we're just both passionate, but I was really wanting to wait. I'm sure that they were wanting to wait. If you never have that conversation, they might think that you're just like totally down, and you never even talk about it, and you might end up having this resentment seed planted during that time that carries over into your marriage. Or maybe you're as a couple and you're thinking about sex. it's easy for this topic to build resentment or confusion because you might be thinking we should be having more sex while the other person is saying, wow, I can't believe we have this much sex. It's something that y'all could be totally different viewpoints on if you don't just talk about it. But if you're able to say, hey, can we talk about what intimacy looks like for us? What feels good? What feels appropriate? What feels off? What are we hoping for? You're able to communicate and give a roadmap of what intimacy looks like for y'all. If it's dating and y'all both come to a place where if you're wanting to wait to have sex till you're married, then you're able to build a road there. Because if you don't talk about it and it's something that you want, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's and that's there's so many marriages where there's a strong resentment because one person feels like it was natural, that just happened, while the other one feels like it was forced. And you don't want you want to be able to expose those things or avoid them by just having open conversations. Or maybe when it comes to parenting, you may not even realize how different your views are until you're in the middle of a discipline moment. And if one of you believes in timeouts and the other believes in no discipline at all, or one believes no discipline at all and the other believes in spankings, and you've never talked about it, you're going to end up in this conflict in front of your kids with no plan, and you're going to almost feel blindsided and like, well, what do you mean this needs to happen? While the other person like, what? There's another way we could do this. And it's just another reason of why these conversations have to happen. And it's best to have them before the moment of tension. They're not a one and done thing either. You have to establish a pattern of communication that says, let's build unity now so that we're not scrambling later. And these parts really do matter. And that list that I gave, I mean, all that list that I shared a minute ago, these are, when it comes to all the years of marriage counseling and couples therapy that my wife and I have done for other people, those are some of the big touch points where people have these big disagreements or fights on, to where one person feels blindsided that the other person didn't see it their way in the moment of a confrontation. Something like a social media thing, like, well, how come you don't give me your password? What are you hiding? And the other person's like, what do you mean? I never thought I needed to give you my password. Why? You don't trust me? And all of a sudden it turns into this big fight, to where instead of waiting for that, talking about it beforehand. And so understanding that the cost of avoiding those conversations versus the strength of having clarity through those conversations. Avoidance really feels easier in the short term. You don't want to rock the boat. You keep the peace and you stay comfortable, but the cost of avoidance over time is huge. When you avoid hard conversations, you're going to leave opportunity to build resentment, allow misunderstandings to grow, miss out on emotional connection. It's a way to know your spouse. You're going to delay healing. You're going to delay clarity. And sometimes you're just going to unknowingly drift apart as you have these subtle, unspoken expectations that you feel disappointed in. But on the flip side, having these conversations may feel awkward now, but it leads to strength that is a foundation for your relationship to stand on. Clarity creates connection. When it comes to even me and Lauren, in the times where we've had to have like many discussions when we were just dating, I mean, we had hard conversations at the beginning, down to our religious beliefs, down to even like spiritual beliefs. It wasn't even just enough of being Christians, but we had conversations about whether or not we believed in tithing, or whether or not we believed in spiritual manifestations. Like we had these deep conversations, and on top of that, we had conversations about sex, and we had conversations about parenting early on before we ever got married. And now within our marriage, there's still times where we have these conversations about what healthy boundaries looks like, what it looks like between coworkers or our social media, and we have all these things that we talk about, all the things that we discuss. And for us, it's not that we have to do these things, but we choose to. We want to, because we don't want we want our marriage to feel safe. We want our marriage to feel respected and aligned. And there's like, for me, there's not a doubt in my heart about the alignment that we have together. I know the things that we disagree on, and I also know the things that we agree on. It doesn't mean that we see everything the same way, but because we know each other deeply through these conversations, we are able to trust each other in such a meaningful way down to our agreements and our disagreements. And whether it's anything else, the goal isn't to agree on every little detail right away. The goal is to know each other's hearts and to work towards a healthy agreement together. So how to start having those kinds of conversations? How do you bring this stuff up? Practically, you should choose the right time. Maybe not doing it in a hectic moment when kids are awake. Don't wait until one of you is stressed or tired or in the middle of something else. Choose a calm moment when you can focus on each other, where you can have no other distractions. You want it to be peaceful because you're talking about something intense. You might be talking about something intense. You want to start with vulnerability, not accusation. Instead of saying, I feel like you don't help with the money, or I feel like you never help with this. Instead, try saying something like, I realize I have felt anxious when I don't know where we stand financially. Can we have a conversation about how we handle money together? And again, you're saying that it just makes me feel anxious. Can we have a conversation so that we can talk about it and better understand what we're thinking when it comes to money or this or that, etc.? And use I statements instead of you statements. You're wanting your spouse to hear your heart without getting defensive. So I feel disconnected when we don't have quality time together, rather than you don't spend time with me. It's this idea of just you're sharing your heart. You're not accusing them to be in position of defense. You are just sharing, this is the way I've been feeling lately. Another thing is to be willing to listen and really listen. Don't go into the conversation to win. That is not a healthy way to handle our relationships. Go in to understand and listen for their fears, listen for their needs, listen for their hopes, and ask follow-up questions. Don't just interrupt them either or try to rush through it, but allow yourself to sit there, breathe, and really consider, how would I feel if I felt the way that they're describing? And really try to feel that sense of empathy for what they're describing. And finally, don't pressure for perfection. Sometimes the first conversation doesn't end in this full agreement where y'all see everything at the exact same way. And that's okay. The goal is openness, not finality. So let it be an ongoing dialogue that you guys can return to as life changes. And again, even just having a clear understanding of each other, if y'all disagree, still better than having completely different viewpoints. Completely vagueness or mystery to what the other person is thinking. Even if y'all were to simply talk about it and the other person say, well, I don't feel like I need to change this way about me, but you should know that I would never do this, or I would always be there for you on this. And it's like this idea where even if there's a disagreement, there's closure. So the challenge this week is to pick a hard conversation that you've been avoiding and bring it to the table with love, with vulnerability. And maybe it's about money. Maybe it's about how often you spend time together. Maybe it's about something that you've never quite known how to talk about. But don't wait until this tension forces the conversation. Bring it up now. Speak in love, listen with grace, and you might be surprised at how healing it is to just be honest with each other. And if you need support, remember that you're not alone in this. You should really pick up the book Forever and Ever to help be a tool for you on this journey. And you could also join our Facebook group to be able to share with other couples that are along this journey like all of us. We're all just trying to make it out here. Not anybody's perfect. So again, I hope that this was meaningful for your relationship, your marriage. But until next time, have a good life.